I'm AJ Bianco from Podcast PD, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows in the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 257 of the House of EdTech podcast, it is the highly outrageous, highly contagious 2024 House of EdTech Smackdown. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech. My name is Chris Nesi. The House of EdTech launched in 2014, giving me the opportunity to speak with teachers, leaders, and creators so you can more effectively integrate technology, strengthen your pedagogy, and have more confidence in your classroom and school so you can make an impact. Get involved with the podcast by visiting my website, chrisnesi.com. Using technology isn't difficult, and this is where it begins. This is the House of EdTech. Very excited to be here for this episode of the podcast, the annual App Smackdown. This is the 11th House of EdTech App Smackdown. If this is your first time listening, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're a part of the podcast. Thank you for checking it out. And if you're a returning listener, thank you for making House of EdTech a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. So here we are. It is December 2024. Logs on the fire, tinsel on the tree, and we've got a bunch of apps to share from 10, 11 people. So this is going to be a really jam-packed episode. I'm going to tell you right now, everything that is going to be talked about in this episode, you will be able to find at chrisnesi.com/257, as in episode 257. In those show notes for the episode, you'll have links to all of the recommendations that are applicable, and I will have links to everybody who shared things here in this episode, whether it's their podcast, their website, their preferred social media, as best I can. So let's buckle up. Let's do this edition of the App Smackdown. I am so excited for this. Let's get right to it. All right, first up in the 2024 App Smackdown, we're going to go to a fellow podcaster and math educator. This is Noah King. He is one of the hosts of the Math Club podcast. Take it away, Noah.
Hey there, Mr. Nesi. This is Noah King from the Math Club podcast, calling in with my App Smackdown recommendation. This year, I'd like to tell you about Google's AI tool, NotebookLM. I know it isn't exactly brand new, but it does have a pretty new feature that I'm really loving. Essentially, NotebookLM is a tool to help you understand and organize any source material. You start off by providing it with any source you'd like. This can be text you've copied and pasted from somewhere, or it can be a link to a web page, a PDF or audio file, or even a YouTube video. You can actually give it up to 50 different sources for any single project. And once you've given it your sources, you can then ask it any questions you want about the information you've loaded in. And it's really good at analyzing and synthesizing the information in your sources. You can ask it some pretty complex questions, and it's really good at diving into your source data and coming up with answers for you. And this is pretty cool, but the really amazing new feature I want to share is called Audio Overview. Once your sources are in, you can have NotebookLM generate a 100% realistic sounding deep dive conversation between two AI hosts discussing whatever source material you gave it. They sound totally natural, much better than any AI voices I've ever heard. They speak in a very real and conversational tone, and they also come up with incredibly insightful points about whatever they're discussing. Analogies, comparisons, and interesting opinions. It's kind of mind-blowing. So to demonstrate, I gave it the House of EdTech website as a source, and it gave me a 13-minute conversation all about the show. Here's a short excerpt just to give you an idea of what it's capable of.
All right, so today we are going to take a deep dive into this podcast called House of EdTech.
And it sounds like our listener wants to figure out, is this podcast really worth their time?
Yeah, they're really curious about this whole world of EdTech, and they want to know, like, what is this podcast all about?
Well, I'm seeing here that they do in-depth interviews with a lot of different people, a lot of influential figures in the field.
Oh,
So I'm thinking that means that they're probably bringing in a lot of diverse voices and different perspectives, which is really cool.
I like that. So it's not just Nessie like on a soapbox telling us what to do.
Right. It's a conversation with a lot of different people.
So they're also saying that, we're going to hear Nessie's own thoughts on education and technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, does he have like a particular philosophy or approach?
I was thinking about that. And I think if you look back at his bio and all that experience in the classroom, it seems like he's really focused on that practical application.
So that's my 2024 App Smackdown recommendation. You can find it at notebooklm.google.com. Take care and Happy New Year.
thank you so much for that, Noah. I've been experimenting with NotebookLM myself for some different things, and that was really cool to hear that you put my website in, chrisnessie.com, and that's what they came up with. Noah, I'm going to reach out to you here publicly on the podcast. I would love for you to send me the rest of that 13-minute thing. I think that's really cool. I think it was odd that they didn't use my first name at all. That's weird because it is chrisnessie.com and my name is in a few places on the website, but that's pretty cool. And yeah, I've used it for some things too. I've put articles in there. And again, if you haven't played with NotebookLM, it's worth playing with. Now, what you don't want to do is feed it some information and take that audio and then pass it off as a podcast that you publish and share online. I think it's great for creating audio summaries. So if you're using it in the classroom and you want to provide and create supplemental resources, I think that could be a valuable use in the classroom. I know I have done that a couple of times in the 9th grade history classroom, but I believe that would work with any subject area. So Noah, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Links to contact Noah will be in the show notes, as well as a link to his Math Club podcast. Now we're going to go to another listener with another tool. Let's send it over to Nicole.
Hi, everyone. Here's my favorite tip for getting the most out of generative AI. If you are having it create something complex or nuanced, be sure to not just hit submit when you've crafted your prompt. Instead, add one more thing to your prompt. Ask it the following. Before you start this task, please ask me 3 or 4 clarifying questions and ask them one at a time. This is a complete game changer in the quality of the results.
Absolutely, Nicole. And thank you for sending that in. Yeah, whenever you are creating a prompt, again, simple prompts that require simple answers, that's good stuff. But if you're going to have it really generate something for you, whether you're using Gemini or ChatGPT or even Magic School, whatever large language model you're using, you definitely want to throw in, ask me any questions you have before, actually, force it to. Say, please ask me any questions you have about this before you give me results. I do that all the time because sometimes I give it very minimal in the prompt, and then the questions it asks me that force me to give it more information, whether I'm writing a letter or creating copy for something, or I'm doing something with designing an assignment or a lesson plan. So I find that really helpful. Again, you can very easily ask any LLM to just create something for you. But if you really want to get the most out of it, it is a chatbot. So you've got to have a conversation with it. So Nicole, thank you for sharing that tip. Very powerful for generating prompts. Speaking of powerful, let's turn it over to the host of Fresh Air at 5, my brother to the northwest, Mr. Brian Carpenter. Take it away, Brian.
Hi, Chris and House of EdTech crew. This is Brian Carpenter coming to you from Fresh Air at 5. Yes, my podcast, Fresh Air at 5. Take a listen if you don't listen. All right, for the 2024 EdTech Smackdown on the House of EdTech, I am bringing you 2 different things. One is one of my favorite things, which is Adobe Express, formerly Adobe Spark. Talked about that in the past, but what I'm impressed with about Adobe Spark for workflow and other things is the AI features baked into Adobe Express. We have things like voice to animate, so we can animate our voices with little characters, which is super fun. Removing the background is a great feature in there. We have auto captioning of videos, and their video editor tool at first looks kind of cumbersome compared to the previous Adobe Spark Video, but it is a magical, wonderful tool. All right, so that is my recommendation about Adobe Express. I'm still a big Adobe Express fan and do much of my work with my students here at my school with Adobe Express. And I also use it personally, so that is a thing. All right, moving on to Microsoft Teams. I have been forced to be in a Microsoft district because our district changed providers, and we are no longer a Google district, but a Microsoft district. And at first, it was a little cumbersome to get going in Microsoft Teams. But Microsoft Teams, for all of you that if you have to change because district choices, etc., out of Google into Microsoft, is not like Google Classroom, but I'm working my way through it and learning workflows for that. One of the things that was really fancy and popular with me in Google Classroom was the fact that I could share one of my files with my students in my class and they could all collaborate on that. In Microsoft Teams, the workaround that I figured out was that in the Teams file area, I make a file there and then I copy the link and put that into my assignment that students can then collaborate on our team-owned assignment. When you want to share, take those sharing permissions away, you go back into the file area, and on that file, you change their ability to edit to their ability to simply comment or even just view. All right. Merry Christmas to you all. Hope this finds you well at this time of year. And without further ado, Carpenters signing off. Bye, Chris and House of EdTech.
Thank you, Brian. Again, if you're not listening to his Fresh Air at 5 podcast, you definitely want to go and check it out. So Brian gave us 2 recommendations in there. He loves Adobe Express. I'm a big fan of Adobe. I don't really dabble in Adobe Express. I mean, I've played with it. If you said that that's all I could do or that's all I could use, I can certainly make my way through it. When it comes to designing stuff and doing things with projects, I am more of a Canva guy, but hey, there's more than one way to, slice an apple. I was going to say skin a cat, but you might be listening to this and really love your cat and don't want to hear me talk about skinning cats. So let's move on to Microsoft Teams. And I'm in a Google school. Certainly, obviously, as a 43-year-old person in America, I have my fair share of familiarity with Microsoft products. But again, I haven't used Microsoft in school other than Microsoft Office, Excel, things like that, as a teacher. But, let me take this opportunity to put the call out to you, the House of EdTech listener. If you are a Microsoft school guru, I would love to talk to you, and let's put out and create some content and conversations and dig into what schools that are using Microsoft are doing. So I don't have a lot of experience because I've never been in a Microsoft school. I know what products are available, but what is that like? Reach out to me, feedback@chrisnessy.com, and let's try and put together some episodes about Microsoft education. I think that could be a lot of fun, and certainly I have room to learn and room to grow. So let's get you on the show. All right. Thank you, Brian, for sharing Adobe Express and Microsoft Teams. Links to everything about Brian will be in the show notes for this episode out at chrisnessy.com/257. Now, let's take it over to one of the nicest people you will ever meet if you have the opportunity to meet him in person or if you interact with him online. I am talking about the Tony Vincent. So take it away, Tony.
Hi, Chris. Tony Vincent from Iowa here. I want to smack down a resource that's near and dear to me. Shapegrams can reshape how students think about digital design and technology skills. This little passion project of mine started back in 2018 when I was teaching 5th grade. I created these weekly digital art challenges and called them Shapegrams. Each week, I designed a picture in Google Drawings using only shapes and invited my students to recreate them. We started small and simple with a red house. Then we leveled up to a winking emoji face, and before long, my students were creating adorable animals, like rocket ships, and even posable people. At first, my fifth graders found shapegrams tricky, but they stuck with it. Shapegrams ended up becoming a way to flex their creative muscles and build a growth mindset. Before I knew it, my students were saying things like, "I can't do this yet," and their confidence was soaring as they mastered new techniques. What I loved most was seeing how these skills spilled over into their other projects. They started designing custom text features for flyers for projects and websites, and their skills transferred into presentations. Some of my students, a lot of my students, spent their free time creating their own clip art in Google Slides. Talk about shaping young minds. Now, you don't have to be a Google Slides or Google Drawing whiz to get started with shapegrams. You don't have to draw your own pictures because I've made it easy by putting everything online that I've done at shapegrams.com. If you go there, click the free button to access templates, and they have tutorial videos that students can dive into. My videos walk them through the steps so the teacher can sit back and watch the creativity take off. Chris, here's to hoping 2025 is the year that students get into shapegrams, that is. Sorry, I had to say it. I'll see myself out.
Tony, thank you so much for submitting that. And yes, you're amazing. And Shapegrams is also amazing. He did mention the website shapegrams.com. It will be in the show notes for this episode. And if you're not connected with Tony online, again, one of the nicest guys out there, connect with him. He's always willing to help. And thank you, Tony, for being willing to contribute to the 2024 House of EdTech Smackdown. All right, let's move forward and let's pass it over to Trish Hinchman.
Hey, Chris Nessie. This is Trish Hinchman from Long Island, New York. My favorite EdTech tip or hack right now is using the Speaker Spotlight feature in Google Slides. Because we lost our beloved Flip this year, a lot of our teachers have been looking and searching for a new option for that. And we've tried a bunch of things, but they've all sort of settled on right in Google Slides, the Speaker Spotlight, where the students can record a little video right on their slide. So we love it. It's been great and super easy to use.
Trish, thank you for that. So again, she mentions the Speaker Spotlight feature in Google Slides. And I got to say, that has to be the biggest loss this year. If I was going to do an in memoriam episode here on the House of EdTech podcast, which might be an idea for a future episode of EdTech products that we've lost, maybe I'll put that together at the end of 2025. We'll do a little in memoriam segment here. But, definitely F in the chat, pour one out for Flip, formerly Flipgrid. What a quick, painful death Flip did to all of us. Really, Microsoft. And here I go, want to do an episode about Microsoft in education, and they took away Flip from everybody. I mean, if you're a Microsoft school, I'm sure Brian, who is in a Microsoft school, has access to Flip behind the scenes. And I'll be honest, I mean, I know I can complain on here, and I would just say my move away from Flip for what I was using Flip for, I moved over to Screencastify's Submit product platform, and it was a mess. I mean, I used it, but it just was not the same. So I'm not recommending Microsoft. I'm not recommending Submit from Screencastify. It is not the same thing as Flip. The interaction between people that post isn't there. So unfortunately, that's not going to work. But using what sounds like a little hack, using the Speaker Spotlight in Google Slides. Thank you, Trish, for sending that in. I think that would work out really well. So I'm going to have to experiment with that as maybe a new replacement for Submit, which is for me replacing flip. So thank you, Trish. And let's take it over to Joe.
I continue to use Flippity.net over and over again. It's relatively simple to learn to use, and the kids enjoy the variety of activities.
Thank you, Joe. Now, Joe, other than knowing that your name is Joe, I have no idea who you are, so I don't know what to shout out, but thank you for submitting that, and I hope people who are listening, if you haven't checked out Flippity, you go and also check it out. Joe, again, reach out to me, feedback@chrisnessy.com, and tell me a little bit more about yourself so I can make sure that people can get connected with you, whether you're on X or Blue Sky, Instagram, if you've got a website or a way for people to connect with you. I think that could be very valuable. And I do thank you for taking time to send that voicemail here for the House of EdTech Smackdown. Now, before we get to the next one, we are at the end of the year. Let me put a little call to action. For 2025, would love to invite you as soon as possible to join the House of EdTech on Discord. Go to chrisnessy.com/Discord, where we can have text conversations and we can connect all together, you and me and other people who listen to the podcast. So check out chrisnessy.com/Discord, become a part of the community when you're not listening to the podcast. And that's also a great way to be able to send me messages, get in touch, and we can just be a little bit more connected in what can sometimes feel like a disconnected world and a disconnected profession. Let's move forward. Let's go to one of my new friends, Martin. He's a podcaster, and we're going to hear his Smackdown entry. So, Martin, from the other side of the pond, from my perspective, take it away.
Hi, Chris. It's Martin Byford-Rew here from the United Kingdom. Got a couple of candidates for you for the Smackdown, the first of which is Copilot for Microsoft 365. I found this really useful through the course of the year, the way in which it links into all of my documents within 365 in my OneDrive and other documents to which I've got access to, and the way in which it can link it to those documents, retrieving relevant information and compiling useful, meaningful documents has been incredibly helpful for me, and has certainly resulted in a lot of time being changed. So I very much appreciate it if you could find a space to squeeze Microsoft 365 Copilot into the Smackdown. The second one is another Microsoft application. It's the Microsoft To Do application. This one I use on my mobile device. Find it very useful to very quickly and easily link an incoming email that requires me to do some task associated with it, to create a task within the to-do list and have it appear there is great. Also, the way in which it picks up on flagged emails and registers those as tasks as well makes it very useful in managing workload and prioritizing tasks as well. Once they're listed in there, then they can be moved around. Also pulls in tasks from various other different sources as well, from Planner and various other bits and pieces within the Microsoft stack. So incredibly useful. Also incredibly satisfying when you close off those tasks and you hit the little button that says complete and you get a little ding and it makes you feel good. So yeah, they're my two candidates anyway. I hope they're useful to you. Thank you very much. Have a very good day.
Thank you very much, Martin. I appreciate you taking the time to submit that. So thank you for sharing Microsoft Copilot and Microsoft To Do. And for you who is listening to the podcast side, I am also live streaming my recording of this to the House of EdTech Instagram account. And my buddy Leo from Brazil just said, another great guest for the Microsoft episode. Leo, you couldn't be more right. All right. Speaking of right, let's move forward, or to the left, to the right. Take it away, Matt Smith.
Hi, Chris. My name is Matt Smith. I am the instructional technology specialist in Durango, Colorado for the Durango School District. And I have two top two EdTech options for 2024 that have really been popular in our district. The first is SchoolAI, which our teachers have really taken to and done some really creative things and just really gotten kids to see how to use AI in a productive manner, whether it's getting feedback on their writing or prepping for Socratic seminars or launching research projects. We've really embraced SchoolAI and AI in general in our district, and it's been really cool to see. Other really big tech tool we use a lot in our district is the Adobe Podcast. We use it for podcasting and also just for audio on our videos because it has this awesome feature, this little filter I believe it's AI that does it, but it takes out background noise, which if you've ever podcasted with 20 to 30 kids in the room or tried to have the kids record anything all in the room, sometimes that quality is not great because you get all that background chatter. So super cool. We use, like I said, we use it for podcasting and we also use it for a lot of narration. Like if kids are making little documentaries and whatnot, and they just upload that audio into Canva. So those are the two that we've really embraced as a district the most in 2024.
Thank you for sharing both of those. I really appreciate that, Matt. So SchoolAI, again, powerful AI tool for teachers, and Adobe Podcast, certainly have played with it. Definitely have used it to, check my mic and also do some of the audio processing here on the podcast and some other things that I do with audio. So again, great tools. Adobe Podcast is fantastic to put in the hands of students if that is something that's a part of your district technology plan. And podcasting should definitely be something we're asking students to do. It's 2024, it's 2025. You realize, remember it was all about getting kids ready for 21st century learning and putting modern technology tools in their hand? Well, guess what? We're a quarter of the way into the 21st century. How are we doing with that? That's going to be an episode and a topic of conversation in 2025 as we celebrate a quarter century of future ready. All right, let's go to one of my longtime listeners, and I'm pretty sure she has contributed to all, if not most, of the 11 House of EdTech Smackdowns. So take it away to the incomparable Stephanie Howell.
Hello, House of EdTech. I absolutely love the Smackdown, and I am so excited to be a part of it for this year. And Chris, thank you so much for putting this on. My share this year is actually a book. And so it's a book that I'm currently reading. It's called Putting Out Fires, a framework for solving problems in your classroom or school. This book was written by a really good friend of mine, Kaylah Holland. And what I love about this book is it has key takeaways and graphic organizers and activities to have you problem solve using design thinking. And so again, it's just something that I think every district needs to read, do a book study with, and a great share to really help you move forward in solving problems in your classroom or school.
Thank you so much for that, Stephanie. There'll be a link to Putting Out Fires in the show notes for this episode, which are a swipe or a tap away where you're listening to this right now. Shout out to Kaylah Holland, the author of the book. Maybe that could be a great guest, having Kaylah on, maybe Podcast PD with myself and AJ Bianco. And let me say, if you're not listening to Podcast PD, but you listen to this, you should definitely check out Podcast PD. AJ and I record that show live on the last Sunday of each month. We do 12 episodes a year, and we have a lot of fun. If you can't make it out to the live show on a Sunday night at 9 o'clock, again, the last Sunday of the month, go to podcastpd.com and subscribe to the podcast. We're available wherever you listen to podcasts, but if you want to make it even easier, go to podcastpd.com/go and join us there as well. We make that podcast for you. It's like this, except we talk about all sorts of stuff in education. So definitely check that out. And maybe Kaylah Holland will be a guest on the podcast in 2025. Or maybe Stephanie Howell or Martin or Nicole or Brian or Tony. We can go anywhere we want with Podcast PD. Maybe Leo from Brazil could be a guest on Podcast PD. All right. I'm delaying the inevitable as we go to the OG contributor, as we're going to turn it over to Derek Larson. Now, if you're a recent listener to the podcast, Derek Larson has been on the podcast multiple times. A couple of years ago, he filled in for me at a point in time where I was going to put the podcast on hiatus and not produce episodes as I was teaching and coming out of COVID or coming back from COVID with the pandemic, and life was overwhelming at that time. And Derek Larson said, slow down, buddy. Could I host the podcast? And he did. He hosted the podcast for maybe 7 or 8 episodes, and he did a phenomenal job. I've been doing this show for 11 years, and for 11 years, Derek Larson has said, I too would like to start a podcast. And Derek, maybe 2025 will be the year. You've had the microphone for more than a decade. You know what? Help me, everybody. If you're listening to this, I need you to go on Twitter, and I need you to go to Blue Sky, and I need you to yell mean things of encouragement, mean words. No, just be encouraging. And let's get Derek Larson at Lars3EB everywhere on social media. Go tell Derek he needs to start his podcast, and I am willing to help him do it. So that's neither here nor there, but we're going to get Derek to record a podcast in 2025 because he has no shortage of words, because I'm about to play his Smackdown submission where, if you're a longtime listener, you know Derek loves to recommend stuff here on the Smackdown. So for approximately the next 13, almost 14 minutes, I'm turning the show over to Derek. So let's hear what Derek has to say. Take it away, Mr. Larson.
Hi, this is Derek Larson, a former guest and substitute host of the House of EdTech, and I'm excited to be here as a part of the 2024 App Smackdown. I've got a couple of great app suggestions, and I'm excited to share them. First off, I want to start off with reminding everyone that you can go to appsmackdown.com, and that'll take you right to the spreadsheet where I've been tracking for Chris all of the different app submissions up to this point, and you can check that out, and those should be live within a couple of days after this episode airing. So be sure to check that out, and hopefully you find some great tools. This year for the Smackdown, I decided I would do something a little different. What I wanted to do instead of having all kinds of new things is I wanted to look and see what have I shared in the past that I'm still using. And I was quite shocked to realize that a lot of the different tools that I've shared in the past, as in some tools back as far as the very first App Smackdown in 2014, are still regular uses for me every single day. So I want to share a couple of those. First off, LastPass. I shared this one back in the very first Smackdown. LastPass, you can find it at lastpass.com, is a password manager app. This app lets you have strong, secure passwords without having to memorize and know every single password individually. You make one password for your account, and everything else is hidden behind that. It has great security features, and I've been using it literally for, we're 2024 at this point, so I've been using it probably for 12 to 15 years. I absolutely love it. You can use a free basic account that gives you some basic tools. Not a whole lot. You can only use it on one device, but if you pay even just the $3 a month, you're going to open yourself up to having a much more secure ability, because you can have lots more devices that you can be using. I have it set up on my phone, my iPad. I've got it on my work computer, my home computer, all over the place. It's a great way to make sure I can access everything. Plus, you can access it online. Another cool piece within LastPass is they offer a family plan where you can have up to 6 different users for $4 a month per user, and it helps you to basically just keep it all safe, keep it all secure, which is fabulous. I highly recommend looking into LastPass if you don't use a password manager. There are many others out there, but that's just the one that I use. The next tool I want to talk about is Authy. Authy is a tool that is also great for security. Authy lets you handle two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication basically means that when you log into an account, you have your password and you have something else. In this case, a code that is automatically generated every 30 seconds. And so I go to log into, say, my school district email, which is a Google-based Gmail account, and I have to have the two-factor has been turned on. It is required. So with that being said, I have to log in. I have to then pull up my piece for my school district account. It gives me a 6-digit code that every 30 seconds changes and updates. It's a great way to keep things secure. Authy is totally free. Again, if you don't use Authy, I would suggest definitely something for two-factor. The nice part about Authy or an app like that versus just sending yourself a text message with the code is it's all in one place. You literally open it up and you can see all of your different accounts you've tagged. Folks, if you're not using two-factor authentication at this point, please start. It is so much more secure for you. Okay, the next step I want to talk about is called caffeine. And no, it's not coffee. No, it's not going to give you a jittery buzz, but it's actually a tool that has been on my Macintosh for as long as I've had a Mac. We're pushing 20 plus years at this point. It's a great little tool that keeps your computer from going to sleep. Now, this was phenomenal on my laptops. I still use it on my desktop. It just keeps it from going to sleep. It's great when you're presenting at a conference and so your machine doesn't go to sleep. It's also great if you're just hanging out and watching a movie or something on your computer. It's a free app. Super easy to find. You're going to go to caffeine, caffeine-app.net. Totally free. It works for all versions of Mac OS. It is 100% worth everything because it is free. The next great tool I want to talk about is called Todoist. Todoist is a task management tool, and it basically allows me to keep track of everything I'm doing and be able to have it everywhere I go because it's digital. I love writing things down, but a task manager is so important, I think, in my mind to be digital, so I have it everywhere. Because I do all kinds of different things, I'm currently working as a librarian at a middle school. I'm not just in one space, I'm all over, just like teachers. We're everywhere. We're doing lots of different things. This helps me keep track of what I'm supposed to be doing, when I'm supposed to be doing it. Todoist is a great tool. It is a free tool that gives you limited functionality, but if you go ahead and upgrade to one of the pro accounts, which is either $4 a month or $48 annually, you get a whole lot more features, which lets you really kind of see what's going on. You can have up to 300 personal projects as opposed to just 5 personal projects. You have lots more filters. It gives you unlimited activity history. Lots of great tools. Deadlines is awesome as well. So I use Todoist every day, and to me, it's worth every penny I pay for it. The next tool I want to bring up specifically is called Toggle Track. Toggle is a great tool that lets you track your time. Now, again, there's a free tier with Toggle that gives you basic pieces. You can have unlimited time tracking, but there's different limitations for what you can do. But if you want and you're really loving it, you can jump up and pay $9 a month for more. I've been using Toggle for multiple years, and I've never felt the need to jump up to a paid plan, but there's certainly more you can get there. The free plan works totally fine for me, especially my only thing with it is I don't love the way everything functions with it, but it's my back end, and I use a different app to be my front end tool that I'm using with it. It's called Timery for Toggle. Timery is an app that there is. Again, there's a free version, gives you more limitations, fewer things you can say, fewer timers. But the paid subscription unlocks everything. It's really not too expensive. I would definitely say look into it. You can find Toggle. Go back to Toggle really quickly. Toggle is at TOGGL.com. Timery, again, it's a separate app. It's not made by the same people as Toggle, but their app is at Timery, TIMERYAPP.com. It just as an overall, it's a better look, a better feel. Timery is available on iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple Watch. So if you're not an Apple user, Timery's not going to really work for you, but the Toggle piece would still work. And the Timery does work with the free tier of Toggle, which is how I'm able to do that. Time tracking, regardless of what you're using, I think you should be definitely using something for time tracking because it helps you to see really how long does it take me to do certain things. Our human brains, we're not great at tracking it and guessing how long things take. And this will allow you to get a better idea. So for me, one of the big things I have to do at my school is I do a lot of printing of different print jobs, posters for the building, for my principal. I do a lot of booklets for different teachers. And so I like to track all of this so that I have a better idea to say, okay, as I'm planning out my days and my prep time, what can I legitimately get done? And that better helps me when teachers, hey, can you help me with this project? Do you have time for that? I can really look at that. I can actually feel much more confident saying, yes, I do have the time. I do have the ability to help you with that. So time tracking is important. I love using the combination of Toggle and Timery to do that. Whatever it is, even a simple stopwatch would be great. Just kind of rock and roll, go with that. Find something that's going to work for you because I think it's a great, great idea. Okay, the next app I want to talk about, I mentioned again previously. This one is called WaterMinder. And WaterMinder literally lets you keep track of how much water you are drinking. The free version lets you track just water. Now, if you want to do a little bit more, if you want to be able to track, you're tracking your soda, your coffee, your tea, anything, your sports drinks. If you want to have more options of what you can track, then you're going to want to pay the $4.99 to have that unlocks everything for you. The only thing with it is it's $4.99 per tool. Now, Waterminder is awesome because it's available on your iOS apps, your Mac, and your Google Play. However, my favorite tool to use it with is on my Apple Watch, because what it is you set it up and you say, okay, here's how tall I am, here's my weight, and it tells you how much water you should be drinking in a day. Okay, it has a little formula for you. And then you can say, here's my hours that I'm awake. And what it will do is every hour, not exactly at the same time, but every hour or sometime within that hour, it'll shoot you a reminder notification. Now, that's why I love the Apple Watch feature, because my watch will just buzz and I look down and I can see, oh, yep, I have not had water for a while. I've not drank anything. And it lets you really quickly drink some water. I previously, when I talked about this, I mentioned the fact that I have a really bright green, ugly water bottle. So what I did is you can actually set custom water amounts. And so I have a green icon that is for my green water bottle as a 32 ounce. And so I just have to go in, tap that. There's my 32 ounce. I've also got one set for a liter because I have some water bottles that are a liter. I've got one set for half a liter, one that's an 8 ounce glass size. And every morning I drink a protein shake. And so I've actually got one set for a protein shake, my little 11 ounce protein shake. And so it makes it really quick and easy to track those things. And you can go from there. It's actually a great tool. It's going to help you to feel better the more water you're drinking, as well as it's going to help you to just, again, be aware of what you're doing during the day. The very final app I want to talk about is, again, one that I've mentioned before. It's called Google Voice. Folks, if you're not using Google Voice, this is a tool that is free and is super helpful. As teachers and as educators, we like to be available to others to help, whether that is the students in our classes, our parents of those students, or even some of our colleagues. Okay, but the one thing we don't want to do is you don't want to be careful in how you're handing out your phone number, because that's a private thing. Not everybody needs to have your actual cell phone number. Using a Google Voice number lets you have a cell phone number that is not your cell phone. Okay, it lets you have a phone number that it can forward it over to you. What I do is I actually have a contact in my phone called I call it Google Voice. So when someone calls me on my Google Voice number, my phone will ring, but I see it's that contact, and I immediately know that, okay, either A, this is a student or a parent calling me, and if it's after hours, I don't really have to answer it. I can let it go to voicemail, and because Google services are so great at recording and transcribing, you can actually read that message, roughly that voicemail, and know if you need to respond if it's important. I also love Google Voice because everyone wants you to give them your phone number. I don't like doing that. I'm already getting a lot of spam calls and texts as it is. Google Voice number allows me to have that, so it's not really my number, but yet I can still be accessible. So Google Voice is great. You're just going to go to google.com/voice and set it up. Absolutely free. It doesn't take very long. There is a catch though, is if you don't use that phone number, Google will take it back and you won't have it anymore. So whatever you do with it, make sure you are using it on some form. That's my Google Voice number is the number I give out for anything that anybody wants my number. If I go to a restaurant, they want your number to text you or call you, I give them that number. So that way when they text me back, there it is. I don't have to worry about them having my real number, but I can always see immediately, oh, I actually don't know who that is. I'm not going to answer it. I don't need to answer that. I can get the voicemail transcription. I know that other phone services are doing that really easy as well. Google Voice number, I think, is just perfect. So definitely something I would recommend. Like I said, it gives you a second phone number without having to pay for a second phone number. Folks, again, my name is Derek Larson. I'm a middle school librarian in Southern Utah, and I'm so excited to be a part of this year's App Smackdown. If you'd like to find me online, all you have to do is search for Lars3EB, Lars, number 3, letter EB. Pretty much every social service out there, that's who I am. That's where you're going to find me. I'm active on Threads. I'm active on Instagram. I'm active on Mastodon, little bit. I'm trying to get more active on Blue Sky. So that's a great place to find teachers right now as well, educators as well. I know Chris has been looking into Blue Sky and trying to be more involved there as well. So if you go anywhere on Blue Sky and on looking for Lars3EB, you're going to probably find me there. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And Chris, congratulations. This is year 11. You're just rocking and rolling, and I'm so happy to be a part of yet another app Smackdown.
Thank you, Derek. Really appreciate that. Derek certainly came at us with a lot. Again, thank you, Derek, for maintaining, he maintains the spreadsheet, appsmackdown.com. He recommended LastPass, Authy, Caffeine, which I use, Todoist, Toggle, the Toggle Track, the Timery app, Waterminder, Google Voice. My Google Voice number is for the House of EdTech. There is a House of EdTech hotline. It is 732-903-4869. And you can leave a message for the House of EdTech. You can text me, and we can communicate that way as well. I have all sorts of ways for people to get in touch with me. As I've mentioned in the last couple of months, I want people to get in touch with me so I can continue to connect with great educators around the world and find great guests and have conversations here on the House of EdTech. So if you want to call the House of EdTech hotline, feel free to do so. Well, I would say that would do it for the 2024 House of EdTech Smackdown. But after listening to everybody, you're probably thinking, Chris, what is your EdTech submission for the 2024 Smackdown? And I'm going to tell you, the thing that I have loved using in 2024, both in school, out of school, and experimenting, it is AI related. And I have really been enjoying using Poe, Poe.com, like as in Edgar Allan Poe. So Poe.com is an all-in-one AI chatbot platform. You can use it for free. You can certainly pay if you'd like to, but what you get for free is pretty powerful. You get access to a lot of large language models, some that do very specific things and some that do very general things. And you'll also get access to a lot of the big name AI chatbots that are out there. So I have been really liking using Poe.com to help me design lessons, rubrics, activities. It's been very powerful. It's very easy to use. As I'm recording this at the end of December 2024, another thing that I've enjoyed about Poe.com is I now have the ability to use 11 labs inside of Poe.com. And I no longer have to go out to 11 labs to do AI voices and things that I do for little projects here and there, which I fully would have intended to use. Had somebody submitted an email, I was going to turn their email into an AI voice for this episode, but nobody sent me an email, which is perfect because this is a podcast. So everybody sent me audio, but I definitely think you should check out Poe, Poe.com, and it might be a good replacement. And even if you pay, it doesn't cost a lot to use Poe, which gives you access to a bunch of large language models that might meet your AI needs as a teacher, as a person. Definitely worth checking out. All right, that's going to do it for this edition, the 11th House of EdTech App Smackdown. I want to thank everybody for participating. Thank you to Noah and Stephanie and Matt and Martin and Joe and Nicole and Brian and Tony and Trish, and of course, Derek. I appreciate you taking the time that you did earlier this year to submit it. The award for first submission goes to Noah King. He was the first to submit to the App Smackdown, and I believe he did so the beginning to the middle of October 2024. And then Stephanie Howell came in, and then it was, obviously that trickle. Now, if you missed it, I do it every year, and I know somebody's listening right now who's saying, ugh, I missed it again. Well, submit something and tell me you want to submit it for 2025. Or you know what? And I think I started talking about this a couple years ago. You could submit something anytime, and I'll do it as a House of EdTech recommendation. Send me a voicemail, something you're loving in education technology, and I will share it here on the show. It's my pleasure to do that and create this community and this outlet for my passion and also your passion for using education technology in your school, in your classroom, in your district, in your life. I've been telling you for 11 years that using technology isn't difficult and to just give it a try. And those words never ring truer than they do right now. Because, you know the world we're living in, whether you're in America or you are somewhere else in the world, life ain't easy. And to have this little space of the internet and this little way that we can connect and grow as educators and as professionals and as people, I am proud and happy to create this for you. So thank you for being a listener of the House of EdTech podcast. Now, and it's been a while, let's do this episode's House of EdTech VIP. As is a custom and a tradition, and I started to talk about it just a few seconds ago, the House of EdTech VIP for this episode is you. Thank you for listening to the House of EdTech podcast. Thank you for sharing it every time you shared it in 2024. Thank you for going to chrisnessy.com. Thank you for following on social media. Thank you for being you and caring enough about your profession and your role in education to make this podcast a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. Again, it is my pleasure to create this not only for me, and selfishly, I create this first for me. Secondly, I create it for you. Thank you for making me a part of your life and what you do, and I'm looking forward to some fun things in 2025 as things continue to evolve and change. Let's close it out. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the House of EdTech podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe or follow this podcast wherever you're listening so you can continue to make it a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. Links and resources to everything that everybody shared in this episode can be found on my website, chrisnessy.com/257. This is episode 257. I also want to hear from you. Yeah, the EdTech Smackdown is over, but the conversation continues, my friend. Feedback, your perspective on education and technology, I want to hear it. Don't hesitate to reach out. You got thoughts? You got questions? Reach out to me. You can send me an email, feedback@chrisnessy.com. You can also leave an audio message at chrisnessy.com/voicemail. That is certainly acceptable. It's a podcast. I would love to put your voice on the show. And as I mentioned, let's maybe bring it back. The House of EdTech hotline, 732-903-4869. Leave a message there. I also want to encourage you to share this podcast with another educator who would get value. Spread the word and help me reach as many educators as possible. Thank you in advance. Finally, I want to invite you to become an awesome supporter if you're getting value from my content. What was today's show worth to you? What is my podcast worth to you? The conversations, the recommendations, the fact that you can literally reach out to me and I'm like your personal EdTech coach. What's it worth to you? Consider becoming an awesome supporter. Thank you to my awesome supporters, Leo, Cal Bush, Brian Carpenter, Aaron Cummings, Jeff Herb, Peggy George, and Matt Miller. If you've gotten value from the podcast and you want to become an awesome supporter, it's super easy. Go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. The next episode of the podcast is going to be episode number 258. And that's going to come your way on Sunday, January 12th, 2025, as we roll into another year of the House of EdTech podcast. Very much recharged. I'm very much rejuvenated. And this is going to be a fantastic year. Again, we're 25 years into the 21st century. Let's make something happen. and let's do it together. Until next time, thank you for learning with me, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.